Well, good morning, Dr. Hall. How are you
Well,
doing?
good morning, Kim. I'm doing great.
Good. I'm happy that you agreed to be on the show. And I love your book, The Seven Tools of Healing, which I have right here. And we'll be talking about that soon. So I've got my notes and random questions. And I guess I wanted to start by asking you to briefly tell us about your journey of practicing medicine.
Okay, well, I realized I wanted to be a doctor when I was about 12 years old. And
Okay.
so luckily I had a knack for science in high school and college. And um, so I actually double majored. I have one degree in chemistry and another degree in material science and engineering. And the thing I like about that is, my definition of engineering is the artful application of scientific principles to solve a problem. And it turns out that's what medicine is. But only about 2% of medical school applicants are engineers. So
Right.
yeah. So I mean doctors like to say, well, medicine's both an art and a science. And I go, well, how do you even define art? Right.
Yeah.
And and actually when the anesthesiologist is putting you to sleep, you hope the science has already been done. They're not experimenting on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I know. I hope that.
Yeah. So there is such a thing as clinical science where they're doing research and trying to find new things, but the actual practice of medicine in the office with people, we're not performing scientific experiments. We're actually taking the science that's already been done and applying it to try to help that person solve their problem. So I really like the idea of the Renaissance person. Uh, that concept of a person that's really broad and can do all kinds of things. And so I was really drawn to family practice because that's the specialty where we can treat you as a whole human being and not, medicine's kind of reductionistic. So they divide you up into like your cardiovascular system. So that's what a cardiologist deals with. And then your nervous system. So that's what a neurologist deals with. And gastroenterology. And they don't want to deal with other systems. They just want to deal with, the disease in that particular organ. And that's not how humans work. You know, it
Okay.
doesn't just affect one thing, right? If
Right.
you have so you are a whole integrated functioning human being, um, immersed in a society and immersed in an environment. And if you stop and think about one thing in your life that has no impact on your health, can you think of anything?
No, I think everything affects our health.
Right. So it just makes sense that we have a system of medicine that can take everything in your life into account, right?
Yeah.
So
Holistic, right?
does conventional medicine do that?
Uh, I don't think so.
No. And I was able to see that even when I was in a first year medical student. I started meeting people and hearing stories of their healing that didn't fit the conventional medical model.
That's
And
interesting. And then you,
yeah,
you went forward anyway.
well, yeah, I went forward anyway because at the time I didn't really know there was a controversy.
Yeah.
I did.
Oh,
I thought medicine either had all the answers or were hot on the pursuit of the answers with research. And
right.
so I didn't really know there was, natural medicine, or I knew about chiropractors, but I'd only heard derogatory things about chiropractors. And so back in the 70s, and, granted, I was in Salt Lake at the time. I grew up in Salt Lake. So there's not a lot of alternative medicine there.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
yeah, not really. I mean, there wasn't even a good health food store when I was in college in town at the time. There probably
That's
is
a
now, but
bummer.
yeah. But so I got interested in science. If the model doesn't fit the data, you want to change the model. You want to expand the model to include the data. But what happens in the practice of medicine is if your experience doesn't fit the medical model, the physician often just throws out your experience. They don't want to listen to you. They don't want to deal with it, right?
Right.
And so they're basically more wedded to the model than to the data. And in
Yes.
my opinion, I call that scientism, because that's the religion of science, where the dogma is more important than the data. So I didn't want to do that. So I thought, oh, I've got to figure out how to, take everything in a person's life and deal with it medically. And that's what I've been trying to do in my practice. And so um, back in the 90s, I came across a guy named Ken Wilber, and he's trying to create a model that puts everything together. So he calls it his integral worldview. So how does spirituality fit with science? How do all these things that seem so different but yet are helpful, how do they fit together? So how do you fit surgery together with meditation in the same worldview?
Yeah. How
And
do you?
well, you use what's called the integral model. So I don't.
Okay.
That's a long story to get into that, but if you apply that model to the practice of medicine, then you get integral medicine, which is what I'm trying to practice in my office. And that allows me to see you as a whole integrated human being. So it's just been years and years of searching and studying and trying to, again, solve these problems like, what is health? That was the first question I remember. Actually, I was in my 7th year of medical training. So I was
Oh
in
my
my
God.
3rd year of residency, and I was walking down the hall after an afternoon of seeing patients in the clinic, heading to the residence room to do my dictation. And I started thinking about, well, why did these patients come see me today? What motivated them to actually pick up the phone and make the appointment?
Gosh,
And
I wish more doctors would would be
wondered,
like that, ask those questions.
yeah. And I thought, well, maybe they wanted to get better, maybe they wanted to heal, right? And then I thought,
Yeah.
well, what is healing? And I remember stopping in my tracks, like hit by a lightning bolt. I didn't know. I didn't know it. I mean, after 7 years of medical training, no one had ever talked about healing.
It just you were just treating,
Well, yeah.
right?
So they can talk about like a fracture healing or an incision healing, but they never talk about a human's life healing.
Yeah.
And so that started me on a search. I thought, well, this is crazy because in science, we define our terms. So we have to have a precise language so we all know what we're talking about when we talk to each other. So here's this healthcare profession, billions of dollars healthcare profession, and they have a definition of healing. What? So, but after 7 years of searching for a good definition of healing, I realized why they didn't bother with that, because it's not easy to find a good definition. So I started looking all kinds of places, like Webster's Dictionary, and actually the World Health Organization has a definition of healing, which is pretty good, actually, fairly decent. But what I noticed as I started exploring these things is that sometimes my patients actually healed, um, maybe because of what I was helping with, or maybe despite what I was helping with. But they and so I could recognize healing when somebody did it. But so I started looking at my patients and go, well, what's different about them now than um, before they had this experience? And obviously, yeah, their symptoms were better. Their disease had gone away. That's something different. But there was something else different about them. And what I noticed is they had learned something, and they had learned um, like more about themselves, about who they really are. they were more in their power, they were clearer, they were, you know, they could be true to themselves more. So they'd learned that sort of thing. And I thought, well, so if a symptom's a clue the healing's happened, then the resolution of the symptom is a clue the healing has happened. It's not the healing itself. And so I thought, well, maybe this learning is the healing. And so I came up with the definition that healing is the process of finding out who you really are and then living that.
Let's talk about your book, the seven tools of healing.
Okay.
So what inspired you to write the book, and how did you come up with these 7 tools? And what are the 7 tools?
Okay. So one of the things you can do with the cranial work is actually help you get in touch with your own higher knowing, your own deeper knowing. Because there's a knowing that's running your body and watching all the physiological processes in your body and trying to keep them in balance. And when they go out of balance, then, and it can't put it back into balance by itself, it'll try to get your attention by creating a symptom.
Right.
Right. And so that's why you want to learn how to listen to what your body's saying so you can get to the imbalance and correct the imbalance, and then the symptom will go away. So it's not going to, like, you have to live with the symptom, because when you correct the imbalance, you don't need the symptom anymore. It will go away. So one of the things I do with the cranial work, when I know early on, I noticed that everybody had this wisdom, which makes sense because everybody that came into my office was in a living body. It's like, I don't work on dead people. So
yes, I was going to say, I hope they're living when they
yeah. And so they have this deep inner wisdom that's running your body, but it also knows a lot more than just that. Like, it knows why your soul came into this life. What is your soul looking for by living this life? And because if you can answer that question, then you'll have a meaningful life, a fulfilling life. You'll be happier inside, that kind of thing. So one of the things we can do with the cranial work is get a person in touch with their own inner knowing. And then I'd ask the question, okay, inner knowing, what do you suggest this person do with this problem in their life that they're having? Whether it's a marital problem or addiction or chronic pain or whatever, right? And then I would watch and see how their inner wisdom helped them with their problem. And over time, I started to see a pattern, because everybody starts at their own place where they're at, and the inner wisdom knows where they're at. So it'll start where they're at. And it kind of takes over like their own personal inner life coach. And it starts coaching them on how to solve this problem in their life. And what I noticed was the pattern were these 7 tools, basically. It would coach them in developing these skills. So they have to develop the skill to listen better, so they're not missing so much information.
Listen to their bodies.
Listen to their bodies, listen to their thoughts, listen to their emotions. I've had some people that are adept at listening to their energy, which you might call your prana or your chi, your vital life energy. So because that's a third track of all the same information, it turns out. So your physical body, your emotions, and your energy are all just correlates to the same thing. And so that's the awareness piece. You can think of mindfulness is, so the second of the 7 tools is awareness.
Wait, what's the first one?
The first one is faith.
Okay.
Turns out, since you get to choose your beliefs, why not choose to believe what helps you the most?
I agree.
And like a belief that you can heal, that you can be in your power, that you can make choices for yourself, a belief that you can deal with whatever life throws in your path, that you have competency. There's a bunch of beliefs that are very handy to have. Yeah. And then once you have the belief, you can practice strengthening your faith in that belief. So that's where the practice. So again, all these tools are practices, right? So
yes.
But the first step is pick some beliefs that would help you. And everybody has their own beliefs that they want to would help them. And then practice really strengthening those beliefs. And then that'll help them to come true. So,
And how do they strengthen the beliefs?
Reiterate it, practice it over and over, keep saying it over and over.
Okay.
And but also with feeling, like you can say, you can say, oh, I can heal this injured knee. But when you say it, you want to actually feel what it would feel like in your body to have your knee healed.
Yeah.
Does that make
I try to
sense?
do that every day. I say,
Yeah.
I'm
And
healing.
that,
And sometimes I'll put a day in there. I'm going to heal by this date. Sometimes it works. And I
yeah,
am going bike riding next week. And so I'm going to feel better. I mean, that's just how I am with injuries. I just know my body heals quickly normally. And I know that this is just a little setback. I think you were talking about saying right now. You were talking about in your book about saying the words right now. Like my knee is hurt right now, but that doesn't mean that it's going to hurt forever.
right. So when you talk about awareness, what are you becoming aware of? Well, what you're becoming aware of is this moment right now. Because if you think about it, that's all that exists. The past is gone, the future's not here yet. So all that actually exists is right now. And so what you're trying to become aware of is what's going on right now.
Now,
So what are the thoughts in your mind right now? What are the feelings in your body right now? How's the energy flowing in your body? How's it blocked right now? How's the environment affecting you
right
right
now.
now? So you're trying to become aware of your truth in this moment.
And that's the second tool is awareness. Is that
Is awareness. Yep.
okay?
Because there's a saying, um, so something we didn't talk about are the difference between the laws of science or the laws of nature and the laws of consciousness. And so science is trying to understand the laws of nature so that we can manipulate nature and work our will on it, right?
Mhm.
But the wisdom traditions around the world have been trying to delineate the laws of consciousness. Like, how does consciousness actually work? And so one of the laws you've probably heard of is that you shall know your truth, and your truth shall, you know that one?
Set you free.
Yeah. And so if you want to be free of this knee injury, you have to work with the truth of the knee injury. So
Yeah.
Steppenwolf was wrong when he said your fantasies will set you free. It's really your truth will set you free, right? So I don't know
Oh, that's
how many
funny.
other times he was wrong, but anyway, um, so that's just a law of consciousness, um, and it's you see it in lots of different cultures. Like in Taoism, they say the masters love the Tao because if the student seeks it, the student finds it. And that's like not seeking ye shall find and knock and the door shall be opened, right? But so we know we can find the truth if we look for it. So that's what so that law of consciousness, if you want to really heal, you've got to work with your truth.
Right.
And your truth has lots of aspects to it. That's why the section on awareness is the longest chapter in the book. It's like
That is the one
there's
that has helped me in the last week. I mean, I love awareness, but I'm
yeah,
really like, you have to be aware of what's going on around you and what you're doing and have
how you
laser
respond to
focus.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now when I'm walking, we're walking in the street because I don't want to trip. I tripped over a sidewalk tree root and it's
Oh,
all over the place right now. So the streets are pretty even. There's no place to trip. But I'm also, when I'm doing things like I need more awareness when I'm using a knife because
mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
Mark doesn't like it when I use a knife because he's like, oh my God, she's using a knife again because I will cut myself and then I'm like bloody. And so I try to just do it. Yesterday we were cleaning and I was really paying attention instead of thinking what's the next thing I have to do, which is how I am. I'm a futuristic thinker and I just am always thinking ahead. But I thought
Planning.
I was remembering your book yesterday while I was doing these and I was enjoying it and I was really paying attention to what I was doing. So I really like that section of the book, awareness.
That's really fascinating because I used to have accidents all the time and get injured all the time and everything. And it was so frustrating. Like, this comes out of the blue. But when I started watching, I noticed that a split second before the accident happened, I would check out in my mind.
Yes,
I
right.
would be gone, And so once I learned to stay and not check out, I haven't had near as many accidents, knock on wood. But
Yeah, I mean, because I think that's how a
yeah,
lot of injuries happen
you check
because
out.
you're not paying attention to what you're doing. And
Yeah, you didn't see the tree root
I
or whatever.
didn't. And it's right near my house. It's two houses away. And but I don't look at the ground while I'm walking. I'm looking around and then poof, right on my face.
Ouch.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so now I'm being more aware and my head's kind of down now
Yeah.
because now I'm terrified that I'm going to trip again.
So there's a lot of books written about mindfulness and the power of mindfulness, the importance of mindfulness. And but what a lot of them don't do is follow up with, okay, once you become mindful of something, what do you do with it? And so
Right.
that's where the third tool comes in. So the third tool is acknowledge. And and so once you become aware of an aspect of your truth, you have to acknowledge it. And the thing about acknowledging, and I used to skip over that step thinking it wasn't important, but now I think it's probably one of the most important steps because acknowledgement is an antidote to denial, repression, rationalization, making excuses, and uh, so you have to really admit, yes, this is my truth.
Yeah.
I really am feeling anxious, or I really am feeling depressed, or I really am happy, or somebody really did say that to me, or whatever. It's like, so you have to, and so you're becoming aware of the truth, then you're acknowledging the truth.
That's hard for
And
people, I'm
it
sure.
is because we're so used to, and I did this for years. I felt like I had this thick filter right here in my neck, and I couldn't, there's lots of feelings I just wouldn't let in,
Yeah.
and so then I was oblivious to them. My wife knew I was having them, but I didn't.
Oh,
It's like,
and she told you, right?
she would tell me, but that didn't really help until I got rid of that filter. So, because, again, you can talk about a feeling, but that's not experiencing the feeling
Right.
and really experiencing it. So the next step is to really acknowledge it. And then the fourth tool, so what do you do once you acknowledge your truth? And the fourth tool is just be kind to yourself about that. And that's what people's inner wisdom would tell them all the time. I know you're in pain. Just be kind to yourself about that. I know you feel trapped in your job. Just be kind to yourself about that. And
What does
um,
that mean to be kind to yourself?
now that's a good question. Some people
Thank you.
don't even know what
Right?
compassion is, right? And I've
So
had,
kindness is, would you say that is compassion when you're kind
yeah,
to yourself?
yeah, it's like yeah, it's like compassion in action, basically.
Okay. So
So
how do you do that for yourself? I mean, I know how to have compassion with others, but how do you actually have it with yourself and kindness with yourself?
well, you just take and aim your good heart at yourself.
Okay.
You've got a good heart. You know how to be kind to other people. So just
Right.
include yourself in that.
So do you talk to yourself? Say it'll be
Yeah.
okay.
So so one of the things I like to practice is every time I make a self-observation, like, oh, I'm having a bad hair day today. Oh, I can just be kind to myself about that. So I just depend and I can be kind to myself about that every time I make a self-observation. That's a
And
way
do
to
you say
practice it.
something like, well, at least I have hair?
Yeah, I'm glad I do. My little
Yeah.
brother doesn't have any hair, so I'm glad I do. But but it can be anything. Oh, my knee hurts. I can be kind to myself about that. And so another good practice is if you put your awareness in your heart space and then imagine as you breathe in, imagine the air is inflating your heart space, just like blowing up a balloon.
Okay.
And then as you let the air out, you hold it inflated. And as you breathe in again, it inflates it more. And then you hold it there as you breathe out. And you breathe in again, it inflates it more. And you keep going until your heart space is this big bubble that you're standing in. It surrounds you on all sides.
Okay.
And you just hold yourself in that heart space energy.
Hold yourself in the heart space energy. Okay.
Yeah. So another good practice that works if anybody's for people who have had kids is imagine that you're holding your newborn baby in your arms again, and you looking down at your baby and feel how you feel towards your baby,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And then you really feel it, just bring that feeling into your body, and then gently set yourself or set the baby aside and hold yourself the same way you're holding your
Oh, I
baby.
love that.
That's
That's a good
and if they haven't,
exercise.
yeah. And I've had some people say, yeah, as soon as I put myself there, it's like a rock went through the plate glass window.
Really?
The feeling was gone, you know. And I said, well, keep practicing,
Yeah.
you know, because again, a law of consciousness is you're just as worthy as that newborn baby. No more, no less.
People don't think that though.
No, they don't, because one of the things we're taught is to be selfless. And what really we should be taught is to be self-full.
Mm-hmm.
And I use the metaphor of a well and an oasis out in the desert. Okay. So the selfless well is going to give water to the travelers until they're dredging mud off the bottom. What good is that, right?
Right.
The selfish well has a locked lid. Nobody's getting any water out of there.
Right. Oh, yeah,
But the
that's a good analogy.
self-full well is overflowing the top, and the travelers can have all the water they want, and the well's just flowing over the top.
Yeah.
So which kind of well do you want to be in the world?
The one where you can get the water
Yeah,
out.
and you never
Yeah.
get drained, right?
Right.
So many people feel so drained from their work in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think Mother Teresa did what she did, or Gandhi did what he did? I mean, they didn't get drained. How did they not get drained? They kept filling themselves up. You know,
Yes.
you
Okay.
have
That
to
makes
have
sense.
a good access to your wellspring of vitality, your wellspring of life energy. And the life energy, I mean, look at this planet. I mean, where isn't there life on this planet? I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking out the window, it's just green everywhere, right?
That's right.
And if you pick up a handful of soil, there's more microorganisms in that handful of soil than there's ever been humans on the whole planet. I mean, there's life everywhere. And so we have access to this amazing life energy. So it's not going to run out. You just
Right.
have to tap into it.
Yeah.
And so so yeah, being the self full well, doing true service in the world. Um, but the way I was taught when I went to Sunday school and stuff was be selfless. You know, you don't matter.
Right.
Um,
Take care
and
of everybody else, but
yeah,
you have to take care of yourself.
and that sets up a dysfunctional society, in my opinion. Those kinds of teachings, but they're worried about people being conceited and stuck up and narcissistic and stuff.
Right.
But true love is not narcissistic. It's not hedonistic. It's not about me,
Right.
you know. So that's so true compassion. I call compassion the alchemist because it's what works the change. Because if you see an aspect of yourself that you want to change and you try to force it to change, like if you're trying to force yourself to not be angry, for example, what happens?
Maybe you get angrier.
Yeah, doesn't usually work, right?
Right.
And that's
Yeah, you
actually
can't
an
just flip a switch.
yeah, it doesn't work.
Right.
And so vast majority of the self-help techniques out there are think this, believe this, eat this way, exercise this way, you know. but they don't ever tell you how to actually work the inner changes that you can do that.
Right.
That's what the seven
Very
tools are
hard to
about.
do. Or if you
Yeah,
manage to do it, it might not stick.
it might not stick. Everybody
Yeah.
falls off the wagon.
Right.
But what if you can make a change in yourself in such a way there's no wagon
Right. That'd be
to fall
great.
off of? That's
Yeah.
what the seven tools are about.
Okay.
And so I call compassion the alchemist because, and so how it works is if you, because the moments are constantly rolling along, they're just constantly unfolding. And I sort of have that image of, you've ever seen those readers where it's like a half of a cylinder, and as you move it down the page, the line that's in the middle gets amplified,
Uh-huh.
and then as you move it down, that line goes away and the next line comes in
That's
place,
right.
right? And so you just are moving this thing down the page. That's sort of how the moments are unfolding. And whatever's in focus when it's over that particular line is what's here in this moment, and that fades away and another line comes up, right?
Yeah.
So if in this moment you can see the moment, you acknowledge the moment, and you really be kind to yourself that this is your moment right now, the next moment that unfolds is going to be a little kinder than that one was. And then you repeat the same process. I see my truth, I experience my truth, and I'm just going to be kind to myself about it. And the next moment's a little kinder. And it's just like turning a battleship, where they're very slow, incremental changes, but pretty soon it's steaming off in a whole different direction.
That's right.
And that's what will happen to your life as
Yeah.
you start practicing the compassion
Yeah.
for what is. But if you try to make it change, there's another law of consciousness that says your creative flow goes wherever you focus your attention.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Right? Well, it turns out that repression and denial are forms of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens to whatever you're repressing or denying?
You get more of that.
Yeah. And that's that. You've heard that saying, what you resist persists.
Yes, I have. And I say,
that's an expression of that law of consciousness.
yeah.
So we want to be able to change in a way where there's no resistance. And that's why that third tool, the acceptance, is so important.
Yeah. Acceptance is important. That's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. But that'll undo any of that resistance. See? And then you don't inadvertently keep creating what you don't want.
Right. Yes. Agree.
So, yeah. So, that reminds me of one of my patients. We were talking one time and she says, well, you know what worry is, don't you? And I go, what? And she goes, well, worrying is just praying for what you don't want.
Yes, I just read that in your book, and I was sending it to all my friends. And they're like, that's really good.
Yeah, and it really helped me. I think in the book I talked about how at the time my daughter was an exchange student down in Argentina.
Yes.
And
that was amazing.
Yeah, and their whole economy collapsed while she was down there.
Right.
And their, banks were closed, there were riots in the street.
And she wanted to stay there and learn from it.
Yeah.
I love that story.
And then I didn't worry, but
right.
a month earlier, I would have right. I wouldn't have been able to stand. I would have jumped on a plane and gone down there and gotten her, But if the airports were working, but anyway.
Right.
But yeah, she weathered it out and she learned some cool stuff and saw how the country pulled out of that, and it's really cool. And I didn't worry about her being safe.
Yeah, right.
I looking at that going, this is weird. I would normally worry,
Right. You had your first tool, faith.
Yeah. And but the first thought in my head when she said that is, well, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
And so I don't fret as much either as I used to, because you get to choose what you pay attention to.
Yeah.
That's an amazing part of free will.
Yeah.
But what you pay attention to is not benign. It has consequences.
That's right.
You can use those consequences to heal.
Yeah.
So that's what, so the fourth tool is compassion. And you're right. I had a really intelligent professional woman in her 50s come in. And when we talked about it, she says, the thought of having compassion for myself has never even entered my head. And I thought, how sad is that? Well, I mean,
Right.
that's a real statement on our society. How could you raise up a whole kid from infancy and they never think about having kindness for themselves?
Right. We have a whole society of people pleasers too, that
Yeah.
they
But
want
the
to
problem with
help
that
everyone else and they don't.
is your outer, but is that real help though? Because your
No.
outer experiences are just mirrors of your inner experiences.
Right.
And so when you start to have true self-compassion, like I said, that's not narcissism. That's not being
Right.
hedonistic.
Not.
It's you'll have a lot more effect on the people in your life.
That's right.
It's
You
like
take
giving
care of
them
yourself, you have more to
permission,
give others.
right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like implicit permission too for them to be kind to themselves, and then
Yeah,
it
that's
spreads.
very hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, but that's why our society is so messed up
Yeah.
because it is so hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, imagine a
Take care of everybody
society.
else.
Yeah, imagine a society made up of people who are truly kind to themselves and truly invested in being kind to everybody else.
Mhm.
Imagine what our society could be like.
It would be wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so then the what happens when you bring enough? I sort of roll tools 2, 3, and 4 into one, like compassionate, accepting awareness of what is. And when you bring enough compassion to a situation, any forgiveness that needs to happen just starts to make sense. And it's
That's the
like an
next tool, forgiveness.
yeah, forgiveness. And it's just like an aha moment because again, you can't force yourself to forgive,
Right.
right? If
Yeah.
you're still really angry and you say, "Oh, I need to forgive this person because that's what good people do,"
Right.
it's not going to work,
I
right?
struggle with that for a long time about like what is forgiveness and how does it work? It's that's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, when I was working on a stress class and teaching these tools to people to help them deal with stress, it hit me that forgiveness really is giving up all hope that the past will ever be any different.
Right.
And then I read somebody else had thought of that first, but I didn't know that at the time. But that's an interesting idea. So, but that's the acceptance of the past. You know, what's happened has happened, and it's never going to change because it's already happened.
Yes. And
And
radical acceptance too.
yeah, so there's an interesting symmetry around the tools where if you put compassion in the middle and you look at the acceptance on one side and the uh, forgiveness on the other side. So forgiveness is basically acceptance with compassion.
Okay.
Doesn't that make sense? Isn't
Yeah,
that cool?
it does.
Yeah. And so, because you can accept something, but you haven't quite gotten to the forgiveness piece until you bring enough compassion to the whole, all the parts into yourself and everything, then it's like an aha moment. And when I'm working on someone and I have my hands on their body, feeling their rhythms and stuff, and they reach that moment of forgiveness, it's like the body just goes,
And the rhythm changes.
well, just yeah, now tensions are relieved, all kinds of things. Yeah, and sometimes it's like imagine if you had your hand on the Liberty Bell when somebody clanged the bell, how that would feel, and
Yeah.
you feel that kind of sensation in their body. And but there's this like this like just relief spreads through the whole body. So true forgiveness is incredibly healing, and that's why every world religion teaches forgiveness. But the forgiveness would be a lot more potent and powerful and transformational if it were based on compassion, accepting awareness of what
Mhm.
is first. If you bring enough compassion to it, because you can even forgive your abuser once you realize how painful it is to live that far from your heart to even be an abuser.
Right. Yes.
You know,
What did
so
they go through to become an abusive person?
yeah, what
Yeah.
happened to them? And so the abuse gets passed like a baton and then a relay race down through the generations until somebody breaks the the pattern, and stops abusing their own kids and stuff.
But it also It doesn't mean that you forget.
No, exactly right. It's not forgetting. It's not condoning. It's not okay what they did. But forgiveness is for you.
Yes.
It's like stopping and taking a bunch of boulders out of your backpack to lighten your load so you can keep going down the path, you know?
And stop putting all your energy into it,
Mhm.
into hating this person and not forgiving them, because it kind of it does lighten the load.
Yeah. And by holding on to those things, you're just hurting yourself.
Right.
Right.
That's a hard one.
And it's no skin off the abuser's nose, you
Right.
know.
They're not being affected.
But what I usually tell people is, that abuser's already hurt you enough already. It's
Right.
time to claim your power back and be your
Yeah,
true
because you
self.
hurt yourself. They hurt you, and now you're hurting you because
Yep.
you can't let go of
The
it.
gift that keeps on giving.
That's
Yep.
right. That's right.
Exactly. So forgiveness is the fifth tool. And then what I noticed is that when people really got to forgiveness and started living in, more open-hearted towards themselves, they just had this intense sense of thank you. Like, thank you to the universe, thank you to spirit, thank you to life, and that's what I call the gratitude. And I remember, I was at my grandmother's funeral, and she was a good Southern Baptist back in Missouri, and the pastor was giving a talk, and he said that the part of the Bible that got translated into God fearing really meant to stand in awe of.
Mm,
And those are not the same meanings in my mind. I mean, but maybe they just wanted to make it simpler. But the feeling is to stand in awe. It's like, oh my gosh, like an amazing sunset or something.
yeah.
And so to stand in awe of how this universe works,
Mm-hmm.
how incredible this place is,
Yeah.
and that we can be a part of that. So that's the gratitude. And I kind of use that sense of gratitude like a yardstick, like, okay, this person's got the healing that this experience intended for them because they've got that deep sense of gratitude about it. And I've had people feel that deep sense about being in bad car accidents, about getting AIDS, about having cancer, about getting raped. When they really heal it, they get to that sense of awe and appreciation. And they'll often say, I don't want to go through that again, but
Right.
I'm glad I did because of what I've learned from it, what I've
Right.
gained from it. You probably had people say
Oh, yeah.
similar kind of thing, right?
Yeah. There's a
Yeah.
lot to be grateful for.
Yeah. Even the things that challenge us the most,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So that and that's again, that's in every world wisdom tradition, that sense that there's a gift in every experience.
I agree.
Um, and so generally when something shows up all around the world, there's usually a truth to it, I think.
Yeah.
So so then the seventh tool is just more practical, and that's called right action. And the idea of right action is it's based upon right understanding. And my thesis is if you practice those first six tools and get good at them, then you'll just know what to do in the moment. You'll just know what to say to that child. You'll just know what to eat for dinner. You'll just know what to have for a career. I mean,
Yeah.
that knowing, um, and then the right action is sort of like the action that gives the most benefit to the most aspects of creation. And but you've got to be in touch with your deep inner knowing to even understand that. Because so many people jump from the frying pan into the fire,
Yes.
then that's not right action.
No, that's wrong action.
Yeah. And that's action based on incomplete understanding
Yeah.
generally. So if you work to deepen your understanding, then the right action will often just follow. So those are the 7 tools, and they're practices. They all get better with practice.
Yeah, I was
And
going to say, can anyone use these tools, and does one need discipline? Do they have to have the skill of discipline in order to use the 7 tools?
well, that's a good question, and the answer is probably yes, because any practice requires that kind of discipline,
Yeah.
and that's willpower. So what runs these energies are paying, first holding an intention, like what do you want to achieve,
Yes.
um, and then paying attention to all the stuff we've just been talking about. But willpower is kind of the voltage. It's what actually gives the oomph to the work, and that's and somebody with a stronger will can push their issues off on you. And that's why yogis practice strengthening their willpower. So their chance of meeting somebody with a stronger willpower goes down. um, and but you have a pretty strong willpower, and you use it on yourself a lot. And I would just say use it in a loving way. but a strong willpower is really good. Sometimes we call it a strong ego. Um, but one way to practice the willpower is to set a goal. Say you're going to do something, like I'm going to do this morning, and then pretty much make yourself do it come hell or high water. But you want to be compassionate to yourself about all the feelings that come up. Like, so for example, let's say you want to follow a particular diet, and you start following the diet, and then all these feelings come up, being deprived, and um, cravings, all kinds of stuff start coming up, right?
Yeah.
Well, then you use these 7 tools for those feelings.
Right.
You can aware of the feeling, you acknowledge it, you have compassion for yourself that feeling is there, but then you get to choose your action. That's where our free will comes in. You don't choose the feeling, it just shows up.
Right.
But the feeling doesn't have to drive your behavior.
I think it's like, why do you want to go on the diet? Why start out with, why do you want to go on the diet?
Yeah.
Are you looking for good health? Are you looking to lose weight? What are you looking for? And then figure out how to get there through the diet. And that might make you do it, might
Yeah.
not make you do it. Like
And
my goal in life is longevity, and I'm going to live, I've decided, till at least 120. That's me. And
good job.
so
Yeah.
how can I get to that goal? And everything in my life is about that goal. And so
Yeah.
I
And if
know
you
most
apply
people
your
I know
mind,
aren't like that, but I
you
really
apply
like
your will
that.
to it, you could likely do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So everything that when I make decisions, a lot of it's based on that. Like, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to eat sugar. I don't. And because I want to get to that.
Well, I think the best way to get to that goal is to do the best you can to keep your system in balance.
Yes.
And so just know that every time you go out of balance, there's going to be a symptom.
Right.
And so by really paying attention,
Yeah.
and it could be a physical symptom, like in your body, it could be an emotional symptom. It could be an energetic block that gets worked on by acupuncture, for example.
Yeah.
But generally, if you get a symptom in one place, it shows up in all those other places at the same time.
Right.
So yeah, by practicing these tools and really learning how to listen and to more and more subtle levels, you can pick up the imbalances earlier and earlier and correct them before they become a crisis
No, I
or a
love
2x4 upside the head. So I think this listening is one of the best preventative medicines.
Yeah. And really knowing what you want, because
Yeah,
that is so important, because what are you working toward if you don't know what you want?
right.
So how do people figure out what they want? I mean, it involves probably a series of questions, and what do you like to do?
Yeah. And we actually talk about that. And I think we're working on a class about that setting
Oh,
your goals.
you are?
Um,
Oh,
yeah. And
tell us about that.
well, so the first thing you want to do is one of the people if you enjoy something, that's a clue that it fits you.
Agreed.
And so if you enjoy something, so what I tell people is, well, what can you talk about at parties and never get tired of talking about it?
Yeah.
Like I can talk about healing all day long.
Yeah. Really? I didn't
Oh
know
yeah.
that.
You can't tell yet, right?
I can't tell.
You know, and I used to love talking about zero population growth until we had 4 kids. Then I had to stop doing that. But anyway, but concern about the environment, that sort of thing about how can we have a healthy society, because we're a part of the society, and you can't be a healthy individual while you're immersed in a sick society. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So so I like that idea that like in politics, for example, every policy is health policy because everything affects your health.
Yeah. It does. Everything
Yeah. And there
affects.
are actually people in Washington that get that every policy is health policy. And if everybody got that, then we'd have really different policies than we do now. And so
You need to go speak in places. You need to go do some
I
tours.
love to. I would love, that's why I'm here with you.
Yeah.
Love that.
This is just the start of what's to come.
I hope so. But uh what were we talking about? I know
Oh
got too
my
many
God.
things rolling around in my head.
I I can't
Next
remember.
question.
We're both like go off on tangents. I have no idea. What were we talking about? I don't know. Well, you were mentioning that you want to teach a class. I know we went
Oh,
way
right.
off that, but what
The
class and when are you doing this and what is it
goals.
about?
Yeah. So ideally you want your goals to be informed by this higher knowing that you have, right?
Yes.
And so you can kind of start with where the stuff you really like, and you can kind of work backwards. Like, okay, so what did my soul come here to experience?
Yeah.
What's my real and I sort of have this image of, as our soul leaves heaven to come down here to have this life, we sort of pass through a turnstile, and as we pass through it, we're handed a gift. And then our job when we get down here is to figure out what that gift is and how to give it to the world.
Yes.
And if we can figure that out and actually do it, then we feel fulfilled.
I
And
think doing this type of thing that I'm doing here with you, this is what I love to do. And
yeah, and it's
I
fulfilling for
just
you.
love learning from people and helping them and I just love doing this. It
And
just,
passing it on so to your
yeah,
listeners. And yeah,
yes, I love this. It's so
yeah.
fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun for me too. I really have a lot of fun. So just again, if you to set the right goals for yourself, you have to know yourself. That's because there needs to be some basis. Like, why do you choose this goal? And so spending time on introspection, watching yourself, getting to know yourself. My wife has a saying, people are constantly showing you who they are. You just have to pay attention.
Yes,
And
that's
so I turn that
very
around.
true.
Yeah. And so I turn that around and say, you're constantly showing yourself who you are.
Pay
You just
attention.
have to pay attention.
Yeah.
so
Pay
so
attention is big.
every moment of every day, you're showing yourself to yourself.
Yeah.
And so learning how to pay attention, you'll get to know yourself and what fits you, what doesn't fit you. And the better you're able to discern that, the less likely you are to get into a situation that doesn't fit you.
Right.
Like pick the wrong job or get in the wrong relationship or eat the wrong food or,
That's right.
you do the wrong exercise. I work a lot with people who injure themselves practicing yoga,
Oh, I can imagine.
and like because they're trying to get into that position and they
Yes.
don't listen and they overstretch and pull a muscle or pull their sacroiliac joint loose or something.
Yes.
So
All in
anyway,
trying to do it right.
yeah, and not listening.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of yoga teachers that are teaching their students to do that listening. And because when you're practicing or when you're exercising or practicing yoga, it's a really wonderful time to listen to your body.
Yeah. And if it really hurts while you're doing it, then don't be doing that.
Well, and have a conversation with the pain.
Yeah.
What are you really trying to say? Because the cool thing is your inner wisdom is actually smart enough to translate body language into English.
Really.
Yeah. So you can tune into your knee and say, okay, knee, I'm here. I feel you. Can you just give it to me in English?
And then it'll
Yeah.
come. It'll
Yeah.
come to you in English.
With practice. Yeah. So interesting thing is knee, all your lower extremities and your upper extremities have accessory chakras in them. And the knees and elbows hold accessory fourth chakra, which is heart chakra.
Okay.
And so a lot of times knee injuries or knee issues are related to whatever heart issues might be going on in your life or an opportunity to enhance it even further.
Wow.
You know?
Do you think that that's what mine? Well, mine was just from a fall. So can you,
Right.
even if
But
it's from a
why,
fall,
but
can
when
you,
you fell, why was it your knee that got hurt?
because
Any part of you
because of
could
the
have
way
gotten
I
hurt.
felt,
Right. But why did you fall that way? You don't know.
because of the way my foot
But
tripped over the tree root.
your unconscious was in control of that.
So maybe, it could have been worse.
You could have tucked
I
and
could
rolled.
have
Yeah,
fallen on my
you
face,
could have fallen on your face, hit your head.
but I
Yeah.
didn't.
You could have tried to catch yourself and dislocated your shoulder. You could have broken a wrist. I mean, there's a lot of things that could have happened.
So why did it happen this way?
Good question.
Thank you.
Ask yourself.
Why did it happen this way?
So
Connected to my heart.
then the key is once you ask the question, get as still as you can inside and just let the answer rise up on its own.
Okay.
So practicing that inner stillness is another good skill to be able to do this work. So you can get still your mind. So you're not trying to second guess yourself all the time, right? To just still your mind. And one thing that helps me to still is, again, just focus into the heart center and wait for the answer to rise up. And that's how I try to practice that.
So you have to be very still.
Yeah,
Almost like
just for a few
meditate.
seconds usually is
Oh,
all it
just for a
takes.
few seconds.
Because it's really hard to be still for a long time.
Yes, it is. I
I know.
totally agree.
I know. I have a hard time with that. But I can be still for a couple of seconds.
I can be still when I meditate, but I meditate 10 minutes a day so far.
That's
And
great. If
I'm
you can be
still.
still 10 minutes, that's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
great.
I kind of force myself to be still.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
that's a
one who
practice.
normally likes to be still. I'm like, I've got a lot of energy and I like to just be doing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I force myself to be
Well,
still.
just make sure you do it compassionately. So
Okay, I'll be kind to myself.
be kind to yourself to meditate because, and you get a lot of benefits from the meditation. So you can just focus on that, as a kindness. But yeah, so that's the 7 tools and they're all practices. As you can notice, there's nothing really new in any of those tools. There's whole books written on each of the tools, actually. But what's sort of new or interesting was how your inner wisdom uses them
Yeah,
and puts them together into one. I sort of think of like an engine for change. And especially tools 2, 3, and 4. They're the main engine.
yeah,
And because like I said, the compassion and gratitude sort of follow. I mean, the forgiveness and gratitude follow when you brought enough accepting awareness, compassion, accepting awareness to whatever's going on.
yeah,
But the more you get to know your truth, your own truth, the more empowered you are to make choices that fit you and have the ability to actually manifest those goals.
yeah. Well, thank you for writing the book. It's everybody, you should just go out and buy it. It's just there's so much. There's so much in this book. I
Yeah.
mean, I've highlighted an awful lot. I could ask you questions for another 5 hours about all the things in your book,
I've got
but
all day.
I
Go
won't
ahead.
do that. I won't
No.
probably get very tired, but it's just such a good book. So go out and get it. And is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share?
Oh, I think we've had a great conversation this morning. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was
Yes, good
fun.
questions. Yeah.
And are you going to write another book?
Um, Maybe when I get more time. I've got a book in my head.
You have plenty of time.
Yeah, I've got another book in my head, and I kind of want to call it Change for Good,
Okay.
how to make improvements that last. So I'm getting a double message on good, change for good,
Oh, yeah.
change for better and then change for long period of time, right?
Yeah.
And where it'd be more practical exercises, because this book was sort of like a data dump. I just had to get it all out.
Boy, did you
Um,
ever.
but you asked the question, why did I write it? Because believe it or not, I'm not a very bookish person. I mean, my compared to my wife and daughter, they're bookish people. And but when I started seeing how people's inner wisdom helped them with their own healing, like
Yeah.
through these 7 tools, and then I looked at the advice that's out there, like saying affirmations and tapping and all this stuff, and it wasn't at all the same. It wasn't at all alike. And I thought, how could there be such a big disconnect between what someone's inner wisdom is telling them and what all the health pundits are telling them to do?
Right.
And then I thought, well, there's a big disconnect in conventional medicine between medicine and healing, right? So,
Yes.
so I basically wrote the book to try to add my voice to the conversation about it's really about compassion. I mean, I listened to that whole book, uh, Your Body Keeps the Score,
Yes.
and I think he mentioned compassion once or twice.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't
Um,
find a book that covered all these things, and they say when you can't find a book about what you're looking for, then you need to write it yourself. You
yeah.
did.
So I really and at first when I saw these patterns, the 7 tools, I didn't want to talk to anybody about them. I wanted them to actually experience them.
Yeah.
And so I would work with people, and it would often take months of work for them to start to be able to listen to their own inner wisdom. and
Oh, I'm sure that it
and
doesn't just happen overnight.
no, and that's why I said it's a practice.
Yes.
And then I had a bunch of people that just couldn't seem to connect with their inner knowing. And so then I taught them the 7 tools as a practice. And once they practiced it, then they could connect with their inner knowing. And I thought, this is a circle. It's a chicken and egg sort of thing.
Right.
And and actually most spiritual paths, if you look at them, the path itself is the destination, right? Just
Hmm.
walking the path is, and that's sort of how this is. So I realized, maybe these 7 tools are really a spiritual path, because you you practice the skills, you get better at them, then you're better able to practice the skills. And so so for people that there's a whole lot of people that look inside and it's just blank, they don't see anything. And that's fairly typical of people who are what are called concrete operational thinkers. Like most kids when they're 12 or 14, that they're in that stage where everything's right or wrong, or it's good or bad, or
Yeah.
you know, and they want to follow the rules and that sort of thing. Um, but if they look, and they can be really good at thinking, but they don't often think about their thinking. And so they don't question, like, is what I believe really true?
Right.
Because that question led to the whole scientific process, developing the scientific process to try to answer that. Um, and then there's a broad science that's used in spiritual paths like Zen Buddhism, where you can actually apply the scientific process to your own inner subjective experiences, not just what can be weighed and measured. That's called a broad science. And integral medicine is pretty much based on the broad science, not the narrow science of biochemistry and that kind of stuff. I mean, it includes that obviously, but it's not just that.
Right.
So anyway, that's why I wrote the book, is to try to get these. I realized there's a lot of people that when they look inside, it's just blank, but a lot of those people can at least start by feeling their physical feelings, and then it can grow from there. So the nice thing about the tools is you can use them no matter where you are in your growth process. But wherever you start with them, they'll help you keep growing.
Would you master one at a time, or would you just master them all at the same time? And would it be like a daily practice, or it's just situational?
Well, once you get good at them, that's situational.
Yeah.
Like when you first try to listen to your body, a good exercise for that we call it the body sweep. And I have a recorded thing on my 7 Tools website. It's www.the7tools with the number 7.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Where could people find you? So that's one of the places.
Yeah, and the other one is my practice website. It's just my name, StephenMHallMD.com.
Okay.
For my practice, but for the 7 tool stuff, it's the 7 tools.com. Okay. But so learning how to listen to your body, it's similar to the exercises they do in birthing classes, where you tune into your toes, and you tune into your feet, then you tune into your ankles, and then your calves, and your knees, and your thigh. Just sort of move up through the body, feeling whatever you feel there. But after doing that for a while, you can sense down through your body in a second. It doesn't take 15 minutes.
Right.
And then when, like I said, any mindfulness practice is a good practice. So, John Kabat-Zinn's work and all that, the stuff on mindfulness, most yoga practices include a mindfulness practice. Unless you're doing just the physical yoga, but the full yoga protocol includes like 7 different things you practice, not just the postures.
Right.
But then so anything you can do to increase your mindfulness works. And then, but then you just have to stop and remember to accept it and acknowledge it, not skip over that step. And
Didn't you say we should live in constant mindfulness meditation or something like that? I don't have it in front of me, but there was something you said in the book about you need to be in a constant state of mindfulness meditation all day long, every day.
Ideally. And you kind of already are. I mean, you're paying attention to something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but we need to pay attention to more things.
Right. And what I would suggest is pay attention to more things in this moment. Yes. How much of your mental activity do you spend planning for the future?
Me. Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how much of the moment skips by because you don't see
a lot of it. And that's what makes life fly by.
Yeah.
If you're always planning for the future,
yeah.
And so I'm trying to slow down and just be mindful of the moments and enjoy the moments as best I can.
Yeah.
And just stay there.
And you can have goals. That's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you have to have a little of both, because you have to kind of plan things,
Yeah.
But you don't have to stay stuck in planning every minute of your life.
Right. But see, if you are listening to your inner wisdom and you need to do some planning for the future, you will.
Yeah.
And so it's not a either or.
It's both.
It's an and. Yeah. So, and that's another thing where the faith comes in, is trusting your inner wisdom knows how to drive the boat, so to speak. Your inner wisdom knows how to steer, and it's having faith in that, it's trusting that. So again, if you're aware of it and you need to change course for some reason, it'll help you change course.
Yeah.
It's not going to let you crash into the wall unless you need to crash into the wall for some lesson, right?
Yes, well, I crashed on the sidewalk. Maybe there was a lesson that,
I bet if
yeah,
you start listening, you're going to learn a lot. I mean,
yeah,
when I got a trimalleolar fracture of my right ankle back in 87, I learned a ton from that,
yeah.
and my low back has been my teacher for 30 some odd years.
Yeah, mine was too. But I've been doing the PT things I've learned for 10 years. I've been doing them on my own. And my lower back is amazing. And that's probably why I didn't hurt my back when I fell.
Yeah.
Because also before that, my e-bike fell on me. And
Oh man,
that was like the day before.
and they can be heavy.
And I fell and my back is fine. And I'm like, gosh, I fell twice in a row. I'm doing pretty well now. But my back, there's nothing wrong with my back. And I'm just so
That is
grateful
great.
that
Yeah.
I've been able to do these things 3 times a week for 10 years now. It's really strengthened my back. So
Yeah.
I'm really happy about that.
So yeah, so these things work. And
Yeah,
that takes discipline, but when you reap rewards for it, that reinforces it, right? Helps it.
yeah.
So, but when you first got started and you didn't know you're going to get these rewards, you had to stick with it, right?
And you had to have
So
faith.
that's and that's another reason I put faith as the first tool
Yeah,
is you have to have faith that this stuff's going to work and then it will work. you
I
know?
agree. Yeah,
So, but no, I really appreciate your support and helping with getting the word out about this process because it is really different than what's out there
it
already.
sure
Because
is.
but every time you hear somebody, you know, say, feel this way or eat this way or whatever, say, okay, well, yeah, it would be great if I was already doing that. So how can I get myself to do that? You know,
Yeah,
most people actually do know what a healthy lifestyle is,
right.
but not very many of them are living it because the vast majority of the chronic diseases in our society are lifestyle diseases.
Yes,
And more
yep,
and more people keep getting them.
yeah,
And so, again, I really think if they could listen and then they would just naturally live a healthy lifestyle, they won't have to force themselves to live a healthy lifestyle
right.
because that won't stick.
Yeah,
And so, anyway, so I think they should say, okay, yeah, that's really good advice, but how do I get myself to follow it? And then listen inside to how they can answer that question.
yeah.
And then they can derive for themselves these 7 tools, actually.
Right.
That's where they come from. It's just listening to inner wisdom.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
You're
being on the
welcome.
show today. You shared so much helpful information and everybody go buy this book. It's
Thank you. Yes.
fantastic. And you can get it in Kindle as well. I have both.
Yep. Kindle and yeah, at Amazon and Barnes and Noble and places like that. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, I'll let you get back to what you're doing. And thank you so much for all the information. And maybe you can come on again.
I'd love to
Oh, that'd be great.
because we can, apply these broad ideas to specific issues that your listeners might be interested in.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for everything you do too
Oh, you're welcome.
to make this world a better place. I
Oh,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. Back at you. All right.
Thanks.
Well, have a great day.
Okay. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.